Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Donald Parker from CyberSecStudy. This is episode number 1 of the Intro to Cyber program. So this program is geared towards folks that are looking to break into the field of cybersecurity. It's also for people that are already in the field who maybe just need to accumulate continuing education points, or maybe they just want to pick up some tricks of the trade. It's been a while since I've posted anything. Heck, it's been a long time since I've done any kind of training or teaching online, on site, anything. Kind of taking a break. I'm working on a master's degree in cybersecurity, thinking about a PhD, haven't decided yet, but we've got COVID, working from home, kids are at home. It's been a crazy time, but sitting around thinking back and reflecting on what I used to do, what I want to do in the future. And, with CyberSecStudy, I originally produced this course material to help folks prepare for the CISSP exam. And, I've taught probably 30 or 40 boot camps all around the country, around the world, really, in Holland and Hawaii, or Hawaii, as they say over there. Guam, I did some stuff over in Guam, and it wasn't, frankly, it wasn't lucrative enough. It was very time consuming, very taxing, and it just wasn't fruitful. It just wasn't producing enough. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy working with people. I love talking about this content, but I had to start to do some things for myself. Got a new baby in the house. So because of COVID, I've kind of decided I want to shift my focus a little bit. And instead of trying to help people prepare for any type of exam, I just want to talk about cybersecurity. If you're trying to break into this field, there are certain concepts and terms that you should know, no matter what certification you're going after. If you're going to be in the field of cybersecurity, there's a certain list of things that I think you should know. So I want to focus on those things and drop a video, at least once or twice a week, little short 5-10 minute clips of these each of these topics. I'll probably compile everything once I get through it all, and maybe put that up on a website or something. But for now, it's just this. So, but I'll keep things open. So drop a comment. Let me know what you think about the format. If there's anything you want, if you want me to go into any deeper detail about a topic or a new topic, just let me know. All right. So first term, the first thing I think you should know if you're even considering joining the field of cybersecurity, if you're already in the field and you don't understand this concept, you have to, okay? You have to know this inside and out. And every time I interview somebody, this is the first question I ask, and I've never gotten a correct answer. Okay, I've listened to presidents, I've listened to leaders of other countries, journalists, everyone. I listened to Warren Buffett. I think had the best discussion about it of anyone I've heard. But the term is risk, right? Everything we do in this field should be the result of an assessment of risk. If you just go into an environment, you're the new cyber guy, and you just check to see if they have antivirus and firewalls and all that crap that that people know about, and just start buying stuff and installing stuff and configuring stuff, then you're not doing your job efficiently and effectively. The only way you can implement cybersecurity efficiently and effectively is after a risk assessment, right? An assessment of risk. So I'll talk about what risk is, and I've defined a Einstein theory of relativity type definition for risk. And I say that because it's short, it's simple, and it's all encompassing, right? So any risk management program, any risk assessment methodology has to begin with this at its core. If it doesn't have this, then it's not a risk assessment. And I haven't heard anyone else say that. I haven't seen anyone else doing it this way. I've seen it written a few times correctly in books. I haven't ever heard an instructor talk about it correctly. So I'm going to let you guys know. All right. So my definition of risk is the likelihood versus the impact of a threat exposing a vulnerability. All right. And those are the four components: likelihood, impact, threat, vulnerability. You have to talk about all four of those terms when you're talking about risk. If you don't talk about all four of those terms, you're not assessing risk, you're not communicating risk correctly. All right. So in order to have a risk, we have to identify both a threat and a vulnerability. If you hear folks talking about a threat assessment, right, they're identifying threats and then they mitigate or try to remediate those threats, then they're not doing a risk assessment. They're doing a threat assessment. In order to do a risk assessment, you have to have a risk. In order to have a risk, you have to have both a threat and a vulnerability. If you've got a hole in the perimeter in the fence that's surrounding the perimeter of your building, that's a vulnerability. If you're out in the desert and there's no animals or people that can expose that vulnerability, then you don't have a threat. Therefore, you don't have a risk, and vice versa. If you have a threat but no vulnerability, then you don't have a risk. Don't need to do a risk assessment. Don't need to allocate resources. Keep an eye on it, right? If you have a threat, keep an eye on it. See if a vulnerability arises. Vice versa, if you have a vulnerability, keep an eye out to see if any threats arise. Okay, so likelihood, impact, threat, vulnerability. In order to have a risk, you have to have both a threat and a vulnerability. When you've identified both a threat and a vulnerability, to assess the risk that you've identified, you conduct an assessment of the likelihood that that threat can overcome that vulnerability, and what would be the impact if that threat overcame the vulnerability. Your overall risk rating is a comparison of your likelihood rating versus your impact rating. Okay, and I'll post some charts and definitions. There are definitions you can follow from NIST 800-30 that list. They follow a qualitative methodology where they say the likelihood of a threat overcoming a vulnerability is high if there are no security controls in place, if the threat actor or agent is extremely motivated, things like that. The likelihood would be high. The likelihood would be moderate if there are some controls in place, not very strong controls, but at least there's something in place and the threat agent isn't as motivated. You're not hearing about these types of attacks too much out in the wild. And then the likelihood could be low if there are very strong controls in place. So just an example, you want to start with those definitions so that you have a consistent methodology for selecting high, medium, or low. Okay, and the same thing for impact. You're going to have definitions that say the impact to the organization would be high if there's a threat to life, to bodily harm, if significant assets and resources could be damaged, then the impact of that threat overcoming a vulnerability could be considered high. All right, so then definitions for high, medium, or low, likelihood, impact. If you get a high likelihood rating and a low impact rating, you compare them on our risk rating matrix, and the overall risk is low. Okay, the lower one always wins. Moderate versus high equals moderate. Low versus high equals high. Moderate versus moderate equals moderate. But that's only if you're using a three-tiered, 3 layers, or 3 categories of risk, high, medium, or low, with a qualitative assessment. So I'll stop there. I'll probably make another video to elaborate on some of this a little further, and we'll go into the difference between qualitative and quantitative, and how you would conduct assessments using those methodologies. All right, that's it for this episode. Hit the like button if you like. Smash the subscribe button if you feel so inclined. And you can drop me a comment below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter if you want to discuss anything at CyberSecStudy.